live. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy
My
New
name
Year,
is
everyone. Happy New Year. Sorry to
Hey,
cut you again.
that's all right, Gunesh. Happy New Year. Let me start by introducing myself. I'm Kanika. I'm a lifelong automation tester. I probably have been doing test automation longer than some of you have been writing scripts. And if you enjoy my presence on this webinar, you should see me a lot more on the HyperTest webinars going forward. Um, I love automation and I love books. So I wanted to start today's um, discussion, given it's probably the first webinar some of you are doing for the year, with a little quote, which means a lot to me because my life changed last year. And I believe one of the most important things for us to remember is that nothing is permanent. You know, the meaning of life is it is a change. The world we see is nothing but change. And a major change that we are all seeing in with modern applications is that they're all going API first.
Mm.
And I think that explains the excitement around this webinar. But often I've heard from the community, you know, people, all of you who've joined, and thank you so much for joining, that API testing is really hard. Of course, it's a new skill. You know, we didn't have these many APIs before, and now it's a new skill that you have to learn. But like anything hard that you have to do in life, and I've done a fair few hard things, I can tell you that it is a rewarding journey. And we'll talk a lot about this rewarding journey today, but there are two things I want you to remember when it gets hard. When you test your APIs well, you know about your application, you know the logic, and you're able to give better feedback back to the developers on the system design. Now, who doesn't want to be at that stage to give valuable feedback to your devs? API testing is an order of magnitude faster. Who wants slow running tests that take hours to finish? Now, before we dive any deeper, let me introduce our amazing guest, Gunesh Patil, who's a change leader in test automation. His podcast, Liberated Tester, is pretty incredible. Actually, I was impressed with the guests he has got and everything that he's sharing. But the thing that impressed me the most to invite him to be our speaker for today is his mission. He wants to make every tester feel empowered and liberated. And I absolutely love that. Welcome, Gunesh.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And hello, everyone, and a happy New Year again. I didn't mean to cut Kanika earlier, but yeah, happy New Year. Um, yeah, so I think people know me by Liberated Tester, quite a few people, I guess, but people who don't know. I've got a podcast and a handle called Liberated Tester. I've been in software testing since I graduated, I guess, 2009, I believe. Yes, it was 2009. Yeah, I was born in Pune, brought up in Pune, a Punekar, which is in Bangalore, and I think Punekars have a little edge in testing because they're quite used to.
Oh, now that
Uh,
is bias.
no, we do actually have, because we are very much used to get mistakes in the people's work from very young age. So I think we make good testers. You'll find a lot of good testers from Pune. I'm pretty sure of that. So yeah, I think is to talk about a bit of my journey. I guess in bachelor's I was a lot about doing experimentation development and all, and then we got into the usual placement cycle, and then I was selected for two of the companies, and I think I chose one of them. That was an Accenture. So I think we
Which
had
one did
we
you
had
say?
our
Which one did you say no to?
that was Infi, I guess. Yeah, that Mysore was quite a jump that period. So I was like, no, 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 I'm not going to Mysore. But ironically, I'm in Bangalore right now, so I mean that works. So,
Well, you
so
can't plan life. Life happens.
you can't. Yes, correct. So in Accenture, we did the training and all. We had like I don't know, 4 months training, I guess, or 5 months training, and then after that, we were supposed to be put in different projects. But before we were put into different projects, there was a day of like a not like a graduation, but they were like, okay, now we'll tell you which branch you'll be going into it. And on the, I think it was a Friday around 5:30 ish, and everyone, like, we had I think three batches. There were people who were like very anxiously waiting. What am I going to? What's going to happen, and what did they are going to say and all, right? So after that, I was I was put into testing. I was slightly disappointed because I used to do a lot of development work. The people who know me from college, they would be like, "Oh, you should have got development. You should have been in development and all." But now, um, but let me tell you one thing. That evening, I think that evening was the only evening I was sad about being a tester or being in testing. Afterwards, everything that happened in the journey, right? That was. I mean, it was, people say, right, it was destiny kind of a thing. So it was I think that kind of thing. I can't imagine anything in a parallel universe where I was doing something else and then I would have excelled
Nice,
that much which I have now. uh,
nice.
but yeah, I mean, that happened, and that happened for good. And I think one of the turning point would have been my introduction to model based testing, and that is I think one of the topics that I am really really fond of. People know, people who have been around me, people who have been following me, they know that I talk a lot about model based testing and the impact of it. It literally changed the way I think. It literally changed the way I look at things. The art of questioning, um, the challenging, when people come back to you and say like, oh, no, this thing works only this way, that's an indicator to go deeper into that particular thing. And I've been doing this process improvement and these things for quite a while, and model based testing has helped me with that a lot. Yeah, I think that's short about my journey.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And you had planned for some really cool GIFs, but a technical snap happened and we couldn't show that. Well, that
Oh, no
shows
worries, no
technology.
worries.
Technology is, it can't be trusted. But let's trust that our next section is going to work. And someone wished us Happy New Year, Dhuli Pala. Happy New Year to you as well. We have an icebreaker question, and I would love for all of you to participate. The first
Yeah.
question, really quickly, is if we can roll the question, otherwise I'll just call out the question. All right, here's the question. From which city are you joining in? 7:39 p.m. IST. Let's do it quickly. We only have limited time, 30 seconds for about 50 people. So let's do it. Which city are you joining in from?
Yeah, take out your phone, scan the QR. We have got like 145
Oh,
people,
yeah,
right?
I should have
Around.
made the
So yeah.
instructions clear. Uh, if you see this QR code here, if you click on it, it'll give you a quick pop up. Jafar, I'm sorry, I'm really bad in instructions. Bangalore, Bangalore, Jamnagar, Pune, Chennai. All right, everyone's putting it in the chat. I love that. Chennai. One response, Toronto, Bangalore, oh,
Oh,
Bangalore.
wow.
Okay, excellent. People finally figured out the QR code thing. I apologize. I am poor in giving instructions. My team knows that. All right, excellent. Um,
We got someone
or,
from Bharuch.
or looks like all the automation testers are in Bangalore. Bangalore's winning. Jamnagar, Nagpur, Gurgaon. All right, excellent.
Oh, we have someone from Washington, D.C. as well. Wow.
I'm pretty sure someone's doing
Must
like
be early.
Washington
Yeah.
DC. I was sitting in Bangalore. I met a lot of people remote working from some Ahmedabad, Pune, UAE. Oh my goodness, we've got international following. All right, thank you so much for joining and happy New Year again. Let's move on to the next question quickly because we've got a lot to cover. And the next question is let's try and make this fun and like use the QR code if it pops up. Oh,
No, it
excellent.
will
Okay,
be the same link. Yeah, I think.
okay, it's the same
Yes.
link. Excellent.
Oh,
All right,
people have got it.
people
It's
have
fine.
that. Brilliant. The ones who were putting it on the chat, I worry about them, but that's okay. You get the drift. uh Rest, that seems to be the most popular.
Nobody
Is
for
that
RPC yet.
all right?
Apache Thrift. No one Apache Thrift. If it remains zero, it's fine. You just you don't have to select it just because it doesn't have a vote. So
All right. Are you happy with the answers, Gunesh? Let's move on. Let's get to ask you questions, which is why people came here. So, I spoke about why API automation is hard, right? Like it's a new skill to learn.
yeah.
Uh, Tell people about why is it more efficient than what they are probably used to doing, which is UI automation. Like, tell us about the efficiency of API automation.
Okay. So efficiency, I think we'll start with a story maybe. So I was working with IBM for a bank based in UK, and they had very what do you call, very old age mainframe sitting somewhere which had all the customer data, and we were doing some we were doing a new implementation for customer information to be sent from one place to another. And obviously the mainframes are costly, right? You have to pay for each call that you make. So we had an adapter in between, and which used to talk to the mainframe and give us the response in a soap format. So when we used to do it via UI, there were a couple of screens which were there, and then you have to enter everything and then keep doing it, and then it will come back finally. So in a matter of, I don't know, about 5 minutes, you would execute like 4 to 5, depending on the response of the application. So only 4 to 5 test cases in 5 minutes slot, right? And when we got to the model based testing and the other approaches for the APIs, we started doing the combinations for the fields which were there. So there was every one field which was there. So ID, name, whatever customer information you can get, right? But the number of inputs that we could give on a UI would be limited because one flow will consume one customer. Then you have to start the flow again, do it again. So these things, like, it's very cumbersome. It's very time consuming. There's very little um, the
Hmm.
ROI
Hmm.
that you get, right? So
Hmm.
we started implementing some solutions where we had like a REST API where you could do this. We even got one developer to develop an API for us because we wanted to do that API thing. And believe it or not, in about four same time frame, we were able to run like thousands of combinations through that adapter, and then get the data back and forth running quite quickly. And that's how we got that feature out of the development into the
Nice.
production, and we didn't face any issues. So obviously, I mean, it's fast, it's clean, because the setup and all other things are pretty quick. It's very beginner friendly, because even a beginner, let's say you got an API, you have to send this. So like, okay, you have to send 10 fields, and out of which, let's say, five don't change. So you have very limited number of combinations that you can do with those 5 fields. And with the number of tools that are there in the market right now, it becomes very easy to start with an API and then just go and hit it and then get a response back. So it's very speedy affair. It's very beginner friendly, and obviously the efficiency, like I said, right? 5 minutes, 5 tests, 5 minutes versus 1,000 tests, 5 minutes. So you get the drift, right? So the efficiency is much, much, much better when you do
Yeah.
with the API, right? Yeah.
And do you think, Gunesh, like, I was listening to this video from Atlassian where they
Uh huh.
said, we've got so many microservices and we're writing all these tests, but we kind of don't know which microservice is the one that is causing the problem. Where is it actually breaking? And
Yeah.
my question to you is, do you believe that with the explosion of microservices, the complexity? So you just spoke about one simple example, and people will say, "Yeah, that's a simple example, but my
Mm.
application is very complex." Because that's what I hear most of the times. So how do you manage this? Like, what do you think has changed with complex applications?
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, with introduction of microservices and now people adopting it very well, I think one of the key backbone that supports the microservices testing and the approach as a whole is, I think there are two, not one. So there's one is the monitoring, and the second one is the business knowledge that you have, which will help you build the flow across the microservices. So Why I say monitoring? Because the very statement that you made about the confusion of what's coming from where and where it is going, all the data flows are really complicated. There's a lot of async nature in that whole application because of
Mm.
introduction of microservices, introduction of queues, introduction of event driven systems like Kafka and RabbitMQs and other things. So for because of all of this, you need to have a very robust monitoring to tell you what exactly happened with your specific request. So let's say you had a request ID 123. Where did it travel on the application? You should know that. If you don't know that, your testing or your validation of that flow will not help, because you don't know where your data is flowing, you don't know where it is touching, you don't know what it is doing. So if you don't know these things, then, and that's one of the main reason why a lot of men like monitoring tools have come up. They are very successful. Like you have a lot of log monitoring tools, you have a lot of tools which monitor the traffic and get you the insights on what's happening, what's the usage, and how is happening. All these things you get because of those tools. And the second one is the business knowledge. You need to have that, because if you don't have that, then the connections of the data flow, you'll not be able to make them, because you don't know what's happening and which component should be talking to which component. So I think if you pair up the monitoring and the business knowledge together, that is the key to have a test approach which will help you in actually testing all the microservices mesh that you have.
And that is so much more different from the way you look at, a UI flow, right? Like now you
Mm.
really need to understand how your application works
Yeah,
and
yeah.
be able to write tests for it. How hard is it to do it with handwritten tests? Like, does it take a lot of time?
It does. Absolutely, it does. I mean, if you say like, because in UI you can see things, in these API and the backend things, you don't see things, right? They're there, they're coded. You don't see them. You have to go log into your AWS, see the logs, see how it's flowing. On UI, it's pretty evident. But for these things, it will be really really hard if you start writing them manually. But it's a good approach to have when you start doing it for the first time. People, a lot of people do like exploratory testing, where they start exploring the application. Simplest way to do about is just open your the Chrome console when you are navigating your API. They'll give you an idea of what APIs are being called, what is happening. A typical example of an e-commerce system, right? If you go to cart, you'll see some cart API doing something. There will be some cookies and stuff which is happening. So all these
Mm.
things you will be able to see. So those supplementary things which are there in the browser, we should start leveraging them to understand how the system works. Just because it takes you from one page to another page, it doesn't mean that it will happen on each input, and that's what testing is for, right? You should know like
Yes.
what's happening inside, so which has gotten you to that state of that page too. And that's where all the state machine diagrams and the flow charts, all these things come into picture. And again, I'm going back to my model based testing kind of a
Yes.
thing, but
Yes.
that's something that I love. And that's why the state of that application at a particular point is very very critical when you're trying to deduce your testing, when you're trying to deduce your approach. All the strategies come into picture only because of that thing.
So, and it sounds fairly complex, but
Mm.
given you have done it and you're the expert, tell us how, all the wonderful people who have joined their organizations can incorporate API testing as a strategy. Like, how do you start and how do you go about it?
Well, how do you start? I think that is more on the team's capabilities and their motivation to do these things, because sometimes people have the capability but they don't have that intrinsic motivation to do this. So but these are slightly behavioral aspects of this. But what I would say is, um, when we are doing this, I think we should look at it at a earlier stage of, let's say, component integration kind of a level. So there are a lot of levels in the test pyramid, right? I'm going to cliche term, but still a test pyramid. So unit testing, and then you have like the component integration testing, then you have the system, then system integration, UAT, and all these things. So unit testing, sometimes it's quite a stretch to do API testing, but component integration is a very good level to start your API testing, and it gives you a fair idea on how the components will look when they come together. Maybe think of it as something, let's say a car, for example. So all the tires would be one component. So in unit testing, what you can do, you can just roll the tire with a hand, right? Okay, it rolls, it will do the job. But when you want to see whether the four or the two tires are really working or not, then you join them by a shaft, and then you see, even when you join them two tires by a shaft, if front two tires are going forward, the other two are going backwards, it doesn't matter what speed you're going. It's similar to API testing. If you do component integration for two things which are supposed to act or which are supposed to talk to each other in future, you should be doing that very beforehand. So if,
Mm.
let's say, one API component integration is giving you, let's say, 400, and then other had to act on that 400 to send some notification to the backend. If that doesn't work, then the component integration is not successful. So the system as a whole will not work. So that notification might be linked to something else in other system. So if that doesn't work, then the customer will come back and complain, oh, this thing doesn't work. You are supposed to send me a notification when that thing didn't work. So it works like that. I think component integration is a fair stage to start API testing, because on that stage, you're not going to bare bones, you're not going to like a nitty gritty of the code. You still have your unit as a component, and you know like what is the contract between one component to other component. You should know. I mean, not you should know.
Yeah,
And if you don't know, you should talk to your developers. You should talk to your designers. You should talk to your system architecture people who have actually designed that. And that's how
excellent.
it will come to be. Yeah.
Great. I think that is a good takeaway for everyone who has joined. I love the analogy. I also
Mm.
see Raghav agrees with one of the things that you said. He said that when we test an API, we should know what all the internal APIs it's hitting. All we need to do is understand the design of all dependent microservices. So Raghav, thanks for making that comment. It's lovely to see. Send more comments and feedback and questions for Gunesh. I'll move on to an important question for you, Gunesh, and
Yeah.
we have little time, and this is an important one, so take as much time as you want to.
Mm.
What are the tools for API testing? How does someone like learn it? So if I want to start like tomorrow, what tools are my go-to?
Oh, okay. I'm a big fan of tools where you can just start off. Like, they should be intuitive. They should tell you how to use me. So that kind of tools is what I really like. I personally use a lot of API tools, but some of the preferred ones, like I use SOAP API in very like 2012 or something. So I use that. I like that. I fortunately got to use an expensive version of that, which was Ready API, which was also nice. Then when we developed our framework at Ushur here, we our primary language is Java, so we use REST Assured plus Java to do all the API testing that we're currently doing. Postman is really very popular, and but I think some of the challenges when we start like writing the test, sometimes some challenges what I've seen is you don't have the specifications most of the times. You don't get it from the other team. I mean, other team as in your dev team or the design team, or so these are that is one of the key challenge that I have seen, that people don't give you a swagger. You don't. I mean, that's a bare
Yeah.
necessity, right? You can't go exploring things. I mean, there are tools which do this exploration for you, but then again, yeah, these are some of the challenges even when using like very sophisticated tools that I've seen.
Right. And you did say that you like a tool um, that kind of welcomes you or explains. You don't have to learn the tool. So Postman,
Yeah,
is the one that you picked. Like, is that your go to?
yeah, it's a very easy to start tool is what I'll say. Postman is
Right.
very easy to start. You just download it and just write a method and then just do the payload and then be done with it. So yeah, I like
And
Postman to
the
get started.
challenges, like and challenges with it.
Challenges, I've seen the if the collection gets too big, right, it starts to fall off. I mean, it starts hanging. Sometimes it
Right.
starts not responding to you when the collection is too big, and that might happen when you have really complex systems, that you have, let's say, 40 microservices which do a lot of other things, and then you have your this test suite, that test suite, all these things.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean,
Hmm.
that might happen when you start getting into more complex things.
Yeah, but to get started, it is a good tool. And just for the audience, is everyone's benefit, if you haven't Googled us
Mm.
already, just thought I will let you know that
Yeah.
HyperTest does API automation. And we are actually giving away two things today. Because it is the new year, we are giving away an exclusive white paper that helps you build your API test suite. So check it out, free of cost for all of you, and a free session with one of our solution engineers if you were struggling to figure out what should I do. Like, you're here, you want to do API automation, you don't know what you want to do, we'll give you a recommendation. It need not be Hypertest, but we will
Mm.
ensure that you are successful, because that is what we love to do. All right, moving on from this shameless plug for Hypertest to something more relevant for everyone. What do you think, Gunesh, are the future trends for API testing? Like, how should testers prepare for API testing? You've given some tools, you've said why should they do it, where is it going?
Well, a future. I was reading a very interesting article on Substack the other day, where a lot of experts in the industry who have built tools, who have been in API for a long, long time, everybody was focusing on how APIs will help the AI based systems to integrate better with other ecosystem. So there is a lot of buzz always there about AI. There's a lot of buzz about GPT. There's a lot of buzz
Yeah,
about
yeah.
um, conversational AI, where you have like, okay, now you have typed something, they'll give you a suggestion. Okay, you can write it better, write it this way. So these things, right, so these things would integrate much better if they have a strong API backend, or they have a strong API support. So I think these things will actually be a lot of in lot of boom, is what
Yeah,
I think.
absolutely.
Yeah, so there's I also seen someone actually generate some of the API combinations or the test combinations
Mhm.
using a chat GPT prompt, where they give few methods, then they say, okay, this is my use case. I actually, when I went to API days in Paris, there was a guy who used chat GPT to build an API to get croissants in Paris. So it was like, where do we get the best croissants? So you just hit an API and then you'll get a list based on your location. So he did everything using a chat GPT prompt, and he had written different prompts. He has also considered a lot of use cases, and that was very fantastic presentation that I saw. Coming back to the point, that the AI enabled systems which will have their own APIs, they will drive the adoption much, much faster, even to the non technical people who are out there. Because
Yeah,
what they have to do, they just have to call an API to integrate with your application which supports an AI capability. So even at Ushur we do this. So we also have our API capability, sorry, AI capability, which we are exposing via API. So that's, I think we are going there. So we are still
nice.
not there, but we are going there. So yeah, I think that's something that was really, really nice to read. There are a lot of I think 12 or 15 experts have shared their opinions. Yeah, maybe we'll also share this as a freebie to the people.
Yeah, of course. And
Yeah,
honestly, Gen AI or not Gen AI, what everyone I meet and speak with is looking for is efficiency.
yeah.
How can you not do the manual, boring stuff? How can I be more efficient? I think the key is anything that can help me do things without writing a line of code. I probably just do that. AI, not AI, doesn't matter. And that
Yeah.
also shows that, we are all humans, we are lazy. All right. So, I guess I will do a quick rapid fire with you, Gunesh, now. And
Okay.
that rapid fire is very related to, of course, why we want people to be motivated about API automation. So, your question is, do you
Hmm.
think 80% of all the testing that we do can be conducted through API automation? Yes or no?
Yes. I mean,
Okay.
okay, I'll say yes, but based on a caveat that there should be enablers to do that. So we can test everything with API. I mean, it's not needed as a UI thing, but obviously you'll need UI validations and stuff. But if you take that out, and the only the core functionality can absolutely be tested using APIs and only APIs. The only thing is you have to have those enablers. You have to have those endpoints exposed throughout your application, and whether it's an internal api or an external api or the other thing, I think people should start asking for enabling those at least in your QA environments.
Yeah.
So we had that challenge earlier, where there were two APIs which were always being called internally. We wanted access to them because they were trying to do some transformation and coming back with the transform data. So they were always being called by some other applications. So I mean, we had to fight for a month or so to get it done, but we got it done. And the testing that we were able to do because of that enablement was huge. I mean, we
Nice.
actually caught two or three bugs which would have leaked to production. So because of that, the transformation combinations that we were able to test were huge. So that's where the API testing comes in, and that's why it is very powerful, because it enables you to do more than what you can do just simple UI thing. I have got a lot of
Yeah,
examples
I know, I
where
can see
we
that, but
yeah.
I want to see that everyone is awake. Hopefully, no one slept off. So let's just do quick two audience questions before Gunesh gives away the most important thing in this webinar. He is going to tell you how can you get to writing the best API automation test and give away some resources. But let's just do some fun audience questions. We'll also take your questions. So can we have the questions, please? All right. If there is a delay, I'm just going to move on in 10 seconds if there's a technical snag. Oh, no, it worked. All right. I am definitely hungry if no one else is. What are the industry standards for API specifications? Let's get this. All right. What did we decide with this? Was this a multiple options? How are we going to see the answers? A word cloud. I think
Now
it's a
this
word
will
cloud.
I think this will be a text thing.
Text. All right.
Yes.
If you're still there, just pop in your answers in the private chat, please. Oh, we're getting answers here. Swagger. Excellent. What else? What else? Well, I can't see who you are, but I promise if you tell me later on LinkedIn, I will give you some sort of a swag. All right. Swagger documents.
R
What?
spec.
R
Oh,
spec. Okay. Open API. Okay.
we have
Have
got
we covered
Ruby
everything?
people on the
Have we covered everything? Okay, all right. I guess people don't want to answer questions. So let's skip the next question and just let people ask questions after this. But on a closing note, the most important thing why I think everyone was so excited about this webinar, I feel, is they want to learn from you how can they enhance their skills on API testing. So can you, Ganesh, please, besides the white paper we have given, recommend things they can use to ramp up and where can they
Mhm.
hop on to after this webinar is over and get cranking?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a lot of free resources actually. I mean, my favorite is Free Code Camp because they have loads of playlists where you can learn a lot of things, not just API testing, but even people who want to take up the tools like let's say Cypress or Playwright or these. You need to learn JavaScript or TypeScript. So Free Code Camp has a lot of those resources where there is like 3 hour playlist, 4 hour playlist where you can learn the whole language. So Free Code Camp is absolutely my favorite. I am subscribed to their newsletter. I try to do whatever they send me. Again, the one more is the Test Automation University. I think that's also a free resource. There are a lot of learning paths there which people can take. Not just API testing. There are a lot of other testing things which are there. There is also one more which is very focused on API security, API Sec University, where you also have like free courses where you can do. They also give you certification, by the way, where you can learn about API security, and there are a lot of other open source where you there is also Open API initiative. Which talk a lot about developing APIs using open API specifications and
Do you see the question? I don't understand. Do we have a technical issue here? It's
yeah, I
Jafar
saw
saying there's a
something.
repeat telecast started. I don't know if someone in the comments can quickly confirm if we are doing all right with respect to the live. Um, Let me just quickly check. We are doing all right. All right, let's move on. So Gunesh, we are fine. You were giving away
Yeah.
um, some things and tips. Let's go. All right. People are there. No, let's go. We're
Okay,
good.
we are good. We are good. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I was saying about Open API initiative. Yeah. So Open API initiative gives a lot of tips, which you can also take to your team, saying, okay, if we are doing a new API, let's follow this, or let's do it this way. Let's start writing specifications in an Open API specification, where there's a lot of support from other tools as well, who can help us in getting that testing done. And I think I also mentioned about Postman being very easy to
Yes,
use and all, right?
yes,
So
yes.
one of my favorite person on LinkedIn is Beth Marshall. She's an expert in Postman flows, and she does a lot of good YouTube video series that she has on using Postman flows, which I highly recommend if your organization is very heavily using Postman. So do check that out as well. And like I
Okay.
said in the beginning, also that um, these are tools, but you need the mindset. So you need that intrinsic motivation. I'm big fan of that word, because that is something that I've seen lacking in people, and that if I see that lacking in the team, I say that the first thing on the in the team wherever I go and join, that you need to start asking questions. You need that motivation to do better than what you're currently doing. And that comes as a mindset, that comes as a practice. It doesn't come in a fortnight. You have to practice on it. You have to start asking question. Be shameless. That's again something that I tell people, that be shameless. How much stupid the question, we just ask it. It's fine. People will laugh at you for a 1 day or 2 days. It's fine. Nobody cares after that. So it's all okay. And it's all behavioral. And once you marry the behavior with the tools, you should be good.
But Ganesh, this is all philosophy, right? Like don't care about people. But tell me one thing. What have you achieved with challenging people and getting your way with API automation? What have you achieved? Like what is it that someone can hope that they can achieve? And again, Neha, thanks for asking that question. For everyone who's live, we are open for questions now. So please ask more questions. So Ganesh, what can someone hope, like, oh, I put all these hours of effort, I suck at it, but I have to get it done. Okay, fine, and now I know it. Where am I going with this?
Nice question. Nice question. So what I will say is, um, I'll give you an example, because you said right where you can go. Um, in my last organization, when they offered me a role of API testing for a middleware project, I didn't know anything about the Ready API tool that they were using, or APIs for that matter, because I was a UI automation guy before that. I used to heavily use UFT. I did few scripting around for APIs, but I didn't know anything about API testing when I was offered that role. I would have said outright no, that no, I don't do API testing. I can't take it. But then I made that jump and would say, okay, we'll figure it out as and when time comes. And after 6 months, of putting that effort, after learning that thing, we had more API tests as a team than all the UI tests that we had in the whole in the whole development center. So that's what happened when we started asking around, when we started exploring things. And you'll not believe, our our ALM test suites, right? We didn't had a single tick in before those 6 months, and after
Yeah.
6 months, every single month we used to hit like 50,000, 60,000 executions on the APIs. And that happened when we started thinking about integration, and the ALM integration didn't come out of the box with the tool that we are using. So we built our own script to start pushing it to the
Nice.
APIs of the ALM. Nobody in the organization had did it earlier. So that's what happens when you start exploring, when you start asking questions. And that's the beauty of it, that you become someone who did it for the first time. And I've seen it for 2 3 times, and it gives me a lot of joy to to
Excellent.
boast on it. Yeah. And if you
Gunesh,
want those boasting
this
rights, right, you should do it.
absolutely. For the boasting rights, and this is golden. Honestly, you should have said it in your introduction. All right, we'll take a few more questions. Please
Yeah,
ask questions to Gunesh.
I
All
think we
right,
had
I
one,
don't
right?
see. We are. I think Neha asked a question. In my organization, a lot of effort is put in reporting issues via the UI. How do I change that mindset? I think you touched on mindset. I'll let you answer that.
Okay, reporting issues via the UI. How do I change that mindset? Yeah. um what I would say is, this was a very typical problem once, when we were using SAP. We were executing tests using APIs, but people still wanted to see UI screenshots. So people are very much wired to see the things. I think what would be better in that sense is you put your API testing thing in slightly graphical ways, so that people get the grasp of it. If you just paste a JSON response, nobody is going to read it, because they see the UI, because they see the field, because they see the error. That's why they come and say, no, no, I need a UI screenshot. I don't want the API screenshot. I don't know what you're testing. So because of that, if you start putting those API errors, API responses in slightly more graphical format, maybe just say, okay, we executed 50 tests, and out of that 20% were failed because of this, and we think this is an issue.
Okay.
Or yeah, maybe something like that. So that also helps in putting that in the perspective of UI thing, because people see some graphics, right? So they want to see something moving here.
Excellent. Now, actually, there's a bit of snag. Keep your questions
Okay.
coming because I see the questions were missing. So I found Sukanya asked a question: how to select tools. I think you could do like a mini course on this, but keep it short. How to select tools? Should we try all the ones that are available and then decide which one is good for our project, or is there a common tool that you can use for API testing? Oh God, Sukanya, deep question.
Yeah, I think the first point is you don't have to try all the tools. Second point is how you go about it. Is, like I said, you need to assess the team's capabilities first. If your team knows Java, you can go for a JavaScript tool. If your team knows JavaScript, you can't go for a Java based tool. So start filtering with that first. And once you have that filter, you will get a shorter list at least. And once you have that, then go and search for the tools which have good support forums, or at least good community, where you can get some support if you're stuck. My favorite things: Stack Overflow, the tools community site, and the tools support site. These three are very critical, that will help you in the adoption of that tool. If you're stuck, if there is nobody on that team, or there's nobody supporting that, there's no community supporting that, then there is no point in going with that tool. And people might argue saying, okay, if nobody goes for that tool, then who will choose that tool? Then what happens with that tool? All that is there, but you have to think of your time and your efforts, and then you have to make that decision. I think these two things will help
Nice.
you at least filter it out to some extent, and then start your POCs based on that.
Yeah, and we see hundreds of POCs all the time. I can tell you with just a little experience, a lot of people come without being clear on what they want to achieve. Like Gunesh
Mm.
said, when you know what you want to achieve, we can help. Whoever is helping you on the other end will be able to give you the right solution as well. All right, I've got some interesting questions. I've been working on API testing, including manual automation, etc., for 4 years. Currently, I
Hmm.
search for new opportunities. 99% of organizations are in search of SDETs who have experience of mobile web automation as well. What should I go ahead now? What should I do now? Do I need to start learning web and mobile automation as well? Now, he's saying he knows API testing, manual and automation, and performance, but he's finding it hard to find roles. Does he need to learn other skills? Well, Gunesh, I'll let you answer this one. I do have an answer, but I'll let you answer this one.
Yeah, I think um, you don't really have to learn the API or mobile automation just for the sake of getting a job. I think if you know API testing well, there are a lot of opportunities in API security. There are a lot of opportunities in API load testing. There are a lot of opportunities in API performance testing. All non-functional areas of APIs are very, very critical. Um, there have been a lot of breaches because of API security not being tested well. So if you really want to stick to APIs, then stick on the non-functional side. There are a lot more opportunities because the people still want the API, sorry, the UI and the mobile people to have that thing, because that's the way they have developed their tech stack. So you can't go with those organizations. Go for the organizations which have API first mindset, which are seeing on the application from an API first thing. So go for those kind of organizations. If you don't find them, then go for the non-functional side, the API Sec University that I told you, right? The resource, they give you certifications. If you have like bunch of certifications, nobody will deny you a job, is what I can say for sure.
Excellent. Thanks, Raghav. I really hope this helped you. Otherwise, you can reach out to one of us and we'll see what we can help you with. Atul says, can we rely on only on API testing, or do you think UI testing will still prevail when detecting critical errors in your application?
um I see UI testing as only something that would validate it from a look and feel point of view. I don't use UI to do functional things most of the times until it's like the core of my test that I'm doing. If there are any prerequisites that I want, I always go for some backend solution. It need not be API. It may be a database script, it may be a batch file, it may be anything, it may be a small script. But until it's the heart of the test case, I don't go for UI. And that's why the answer for the 80% testing can be done by API was yes for me, because that's how we approach the system, and that's how you do it. And like I said, if you don't have that access, you have to have that conversation with the people who are developing that, and you have to have that applications um, which will help you do that. So you have to make that awareness in your team to enable you to do that kind of API testing that you want.
Excellent. Thanks, Ganesh. I like Pratyush's question. I don't know if you'll be able to explain everything, but let's take example with JavaScript. What will be a better tool? Now, I don't know if you have an example, but maybe you can
Okay.
explain what he can do with this.
Okay, for JavaScript, I think correct me if I'm wrong, but Cypress is a really good tool in API. Also, it's been framed as a UI testing tool, but I have seen a couple of blogs from people where they have very effectively used Cypress to do API testing as well. I think that's one example. Sorry, I'm not like a JavaScript expert. I've been in Java for quite some time, so my
Yeah,
knowledge on that side is slightly limited.
yeah, that's
But Cypress is the
Pratyush.
one. Yeah.
Pratyush, you can hop on to. We'll share a Calendly. Speak to one of our engineers. They will help you with finding the best tool. Promise not to give you something that doesn't work for you. All right. Karthik, what kind of API failures can cause problems or should one be looking for while testing mobile apps?
Okay.
Is
What I've
Usher, does
seen
Usher have a
in
mobile app?
No, we don't.
That's why I
we
said
are
it.
we are we are going towards SDKs for mobiles, but we don't have a mobile app per se. We have something like a mobile app experience on a browser, which is like
Mm.
our trademark thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, we don't have mobile apps as such.
I
But
think
yeah,
this question is more
answering
like, yeah,
yeah,
go on.
yeah. So in usual mobile apps, what you see is there are a lot of third party integrations that you have to do. So I think failures would be seen more when you're starting to integrate it with the third party. You usually have a payment, you usually have a booking, you usually have some sort of thing that you're taking it from the other app. So simple, like the UPI is not that much automatable, but still a simple Stripe application which is taking a call, right? So there are a lot of things. What the examples that I can tell you is maybe one of your keys to that platform's development may be wrong, so you will see not authorized. So it's usually unauthorized or unreachable, and sometimes 500 if it's down. But yeah, usually authentication authorization errors are quite frequent, is what I've seen from my experience while integrating with third parties for the mobile apps.
Okay. Excellent. Thanks, Gunesh. I hope that answered the question, Karthik. All right, there are two questions that don't show up on the
Okay.
window magically.
Mm-hmm.
I will tell you. Question: contract testing is not a part of API testing. I think it's a question. So this is a good one actually because people go, "What is contract testing? What is API testing?" This is from Dhulipala. Why don't you answer this question?
Yeah, to be very honest, I was very recently introduced to contract testing when I did a workshop with Bass. Um, I'm not I'm not that much knowledgeable on contract testing, but what I have seen from that workshop is the contract testing is more collaborative than API testing, because in contract testing you have a system which is also validating the contracts with the things that you are doing in your test. And one of the example is Pact, I think, which was open source but
Mm,
now handled by Smart Bear, I guess.
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so the Pact is a tool that you can use for contract testing, where if you make any change in your contract, when you upload it to Pact, the Pact will tell you if you have broken any other existing contracts which you already have. So for that, you don't really have to go deeper into testing that particular deployment as such, but that can be done on a class level, sort of like a unit testing kind of a thing, where you have few annotations and then they tell you whether you have broke the contract, or if there are any changes from third party to their contract, then you will get that notification in Pact saying, okay, they have changed it, you need to change on your side as well. So
Yeah.
that's how the contract testing works. It's more, I won't say it's more static, but it doesn't need those many combinations. It's like the basic necessity of the API to work. That's what they tell you in part of contract testing, as per my knowledge. That's a disclaimer. So,
Great. You,
yeah.
you you know the hardest thing about this webinar for me, Gunesh, is not to say, "Oh, listen, we do it as well." But so I'm, but I might as well say it. Well, you want to know about contract testing? Reach out to someone in HyperTest. We can help you. But sorry, I wasn't supposed to say that. All right, Gunesh, you have two more questions, and I promise
Yeah.
we will wind up. What are your opinions on Rest Assured, and how do you compare it with other tools for API automation? Harish, fabulous question, very very specific. I like it. Uh,
I find Rest Assured really, really easy and very flexible, from a standpoint of having an end-to-end API test written, because we have an extensive framework in Rest Assured. I mean, Java Rest Assured, and we have used a lot of would say abstractions to make it happen and make the test right really simple way. So I personally like Rest Assured. The other tools that I have seen is, there's one more .NET library that you can use. There are a couple of other open source tools. I think there's Karate, which also can do API testing, but I'm not a big fan of BDD, writing specs in BDD, because I burnt my hands with that, so I take it with caution most of the times. But yeah, I mean, if you ask about rest assured, I would say go blind with the tool. You will not face any issues with rest assured. Until now, I have not faced any issues with rest assured.
All right, excellent. What are the prerequisites of API security testing? This is the last
Hmm.
question because Gunesh and I are hungry. All right.
What are the prerequisites? So you should first you should know about security testing because it's very different from functional testing. People have few idea of how you can do security testing, but it goes beyond that, and that I came to learn when I joined Usher, because before that we never did security testing, or at least I was not part of that team. And the combinations and the ways you start testing it, there are a lot of other things. Your what do you say, your best friend in that is OOPS top 10. You should go to oops.org. There will be a top 10 list. Go through that. They have amazing documentation on what each vulnerability is and how it affects your user. I think that's the prerequisite of even thinking about security testing. Once you get to that knowledge, then you can start. The other is the API University. Again, I keep mentioning it because people keep asking about security testing. But yeah, so that's one more thing. So the knowledge is very critical in security testing, because in functional it's more intuitive. You tend to think in the flow manner of the application. Security is not that. Security is exactly opposite of that, and you have to be able to break things in security and think in that aspect, and there are a lot of ways to do it. So I would recommend a reading is a must before you actually think about security test.
All right. I told you I'm not going to take another question, but
Mm.
someone just popped in something. So I'm just going to get you to say a quick yes or no. Okay.
Okay.
So to this question, often
Yeah.
test cases are written based on application's logic and user flow. Now you said that
Uh-huh.
you need to understand the application and it's hard. What are your thoughts on building a system that can generate test cases by recording your user's behavior? Is that a good idea, Gunesh?
I think yes. I think yes. I mean, people do that by analyzing the heat maps in the production, and getting that user behavior from the production, and then start. And but I think building a system that can generate test cases by recording is absolutely amazing. If there is any tool, I think that would be great. Like I said, people do it from the specs using Gen AI, but I'm not sure if I know any tools which do that. I think I came across one or
You
two.
you
I
you you
don't
do.
remember.
You just can't see it on the screen somewhere, but you do. All right.
Oh,
So that's what we do at HyperTest. If you want to know more, as I said, this is not about HyperTest at all. This is about Gunesh sharing his knowledge. We loved having everyone. It's almost top of the hour. Happy New Year again, Gunesh. Thank you so much for being a speaker with me, and thank you so much for everyone who's joined. Feel free to reach out. Here's a link for setting up any sessions to talk about your API test problems with us. Loved having you. Thank you, Gunesh. Good night. Take care. Bye.
thank you, everyone. Thank you. Bye bye. Bye, Kanika.
Bye.